So today we are celebrating National Apprenticeship Week, and we are joined by a great panel of faculty and administrators from different institutions across our lovely state of Utah, as well as USHE Commissioner Dave Wolstenhume and Commissioner of Apprenticeships Melissa Stark, and she is representing the Department of Workforce Services. So we're going to start our program today with Commissioner Wolstenhume kicking off with his thoughts around apprenticeships and higher education, and then Melissa will follow him with a presentation on different apprenticeship models, and after that we will follow with the panel. So we will have time at the end for Q&A, but feel free to put any questions in the chat as they arise and we will address them as quickly as we can. So Commissioner Wolstenhume, if you would mind just kicking us off.
All right, thanks Trish, and thanks for putting this all together on behalf of USHE. And I appreciate all of you taking time. I know how busy all of you are, but I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to jump on this presentation and this dialogue today, really around apprenticeships. And I see Melissa Starks, the Commissioner of Apprenticeships in the state of Utah, on my screen. And Melissa, I appreciate all you do on behalf of the system of higher education, of really helping connect industry and students together. And one of the things that I often think about in education and how education in my mind needs to move forward is, as we continue down this road, is we really need to make sure we're connected a lot more with industry than we've ever been in the past. And that's not to say that we haven't done a good job, and it's not to say that we haven't continued to try to do that, but I think we're gonna have to elevate that game even more as we move forward to make sure that we're really doing what we're meant to do, and that is to fill the workforce needs. And I think the more that we can be connected with our industry partners throughout the state and with different regions of the state, the better we're going to be at being able to meet that request that we get often. It's been quite interesting, obviously, as the unemployment rate is at such a low percent in the state of Utah. I get calls daily, and I know each of you at the institutions do as well, of what students are available, what workforce do we have in the pipeline that can help fill this need of a workforce throughout the state. And I don't know about all of you, but to me, that's a little bit overwhelming to know that really becomes our responsibility to make sure those students are completing our programs and then being connected in the right fields in the right area to fulfill that workforce needs. And so as I think about that and how does that tie into what our dialogue is around today is around apprenticeships, I think there's a direct connection there. And the more that we can make sure that our programs, regardless of what program that is, whether it's a tech college, whether that's a degree granting institution, regardless of what type of program it is that a student's engaged in, the sooner that we can get them connected with those industry partners, the better off we're all going to be. There's a lot of research out there that shows that the sooner a student is connected with those workforce partners, their persistence and their completion goes way up. And that's the other thing that worries me in the state of Utah is we do a fair job at access, but our completion rate as a state across the board is not where it needs to be. And so I'd also think that apprenticeships could do us a world of good in that arena as well, to be able to get those students out in the workforce, being involved in apprenticeships, externships, all the different flavors of apprenticeships that are out there, to be able to get these students connected at a much earlier stage. The other dialogue that we're just jumping in at our degree granting institutions, and even some in the tech colleges, but probably more at this point in the degree granting institutions and with some of our key legislative friends, is around the idea of micro-credentialing. And you've all heard of micro-credentialing, where we're taking a subset of courses in any of our degree programs and trying to get those clustered in a way the students can get micro-credentialed so that they can get out into industry earlier. The more I talk with our industry partners, the more they get excited about this, and Talent Ready Utah and some of the clusters we're working with, because now the students are going to get a skill set to where they can go and start to be engaged in these apprenticeships, which make them much more meaningful, and or even just a summer work opportunity for them, or even a part-time work opportunity as they're continuing their 4-year degrees or whatever degree program that they're in. So you're going to see a lot more coming from our state board, as well as from our provost and other things as we start having that conversation. Again, this is a lot of our institutions are already in the developmental stages of this, and some have already done a great job of putting together some micro-credential for students. But as you reflect back, it's always what's best for the student and how do we fill that niche for industry. And I think that's going to be a major role as we move forward and continue to try to change things in a way that is going to be beneficial to the state. So I'm looking forward to the dialogue. I know there's a lot of folks on here that have a lot to share about apprenticeships, and I'm waiting to hear from Elisa and the great work that she's doing in the commissioner's office around apprenticeships. And we're very lucky in the state of Utah to have her. I know her background with DWS and her background working closely with industry has played a real valuable role in her new role as the commissioner's apprenticeship over the last couple of years. So with that, Trish, I'm going to turn it back to you and we'll jump into the dialogue.
Great. Well, I'm just going to turn right around and say thank you, Commissioner, and hand it over to Commissioner Stark.
Well, thank you, Trish, and thank you, Commissioner Wilson-Hume, for having me today. And really, all I need to say is ditto. I think we're done. I totally agree with you. I don't envy the position that you are in as educators in industry coming directly to you and saying, we need more, we need more, we need more, or we don't have enough, or you're sending us enough, but not with the right skill level. And I know Commissioner Wilson-Hume and I have had this conversation a long time ago about industry and their desires and their needs. But instead of just saying, this is what we need from you, actually partnering with you to help develop what they need. And that's exactly what apprenticeship does. This helps them to kind of put their money where their mouth is, if you will, so to speak, and have them engaged in helping to develop their own workforce and move from being a co-user of talent into a co-producer of talent. So instead of just consuming the talent is what I was looking for, they become co-producers of that talent. So I'm really excited about the things that we have been doing and that we have planned. As part of National Apprenticeship Week, we did get a declaration of Apprenticeship Week from the governor. And so Trish asked me to share our video with you for those, just in case you haven't seen it yet. So we will see if I can do this correctly. Share the sound here.
It's a really great video, so worth a couple of minutes while she gets it set up.
Hey everyone, I'm Elisa Stark, Commissioner of Apprenticeship Programs for the state of Utah, and I want to welcome you and thank you for celebrating National Apprenticeship Week with us this week. First of all, I'd really like to thank Governor Cox because he gave us a declaration of National Apprenticeship Week in Utah, and I really appreciate his support in supporting registered apprenticeships, supporting the idea that four-year degrees are not the only path to success, that there are many paths to success. You know, when we chatted with him and we received this declaration, it was really nice to see his vision and wanting to make sure that there are opportunities for all Utahns and exploring and showing how there are many paths to success. Being a registered apprenticeship is post-secondary education. It just combines the classroom instruction with the on-the-job learning at the same time instead of completing an education and then getting a job. And these lead to great careers. So we're really excited and thank him for his leadership and his support of National Apprenticeship Week. And I'm here with the State Director, Pat Miller. She is a State Director for the Office of Apprenticeship, the federal office here. And well, Pat, you've been around for quite a while. Why don't you tell us kind of where we've been, and then we'll talk about where we are now and where we see going in the future.
Thanks, Melissa. Registered apprenticeship's been around since 1937. For the last 84 years, registered apprenticeship has played a huge part in building the state of Utah. And I say that literally because many of the buildings you enter on a daily basis, whether they are business buildings, utility buildings, schools, libraries, they were all built by registered apprenticeship participants. One of the things that concerns me is that people think that registered apprenticeships are manual labor, low income, and low benefit occupations. This is just not true. When I started working for the agency 17 years ago, we had less than 900 registered occupations. We now have over 1,700 that are registered and more coming on all the time. I can't tell you how many career fairs and invitations to speak to people young and old about registered apprenticeship and the benefits of being a part of it. You know, and so do I, that nothing happens when it's only one person. It works better as a team. I've had Alexia Murphy and I've had Melissa Stark helping over the last few years, and they've made a huge impact on the ability to get the word out and to help companies and people who are reaching for registered apprenticeship to take it into the future. Alexia, how have things been going for you?
Thanks, Pat. It has been a busy couple of years. You know, one of the things I really appreciate about apprenticeship is not just that apprenticeship programs are growing, but the industries that they're in are growing as well. You know, I think we're always going to have construction apprenticeships, especially now. There's so much growth in Utah, but people don't realize that there's apprenticeships in manufacturing, automotive, diesel, IT, and even healthcare now. I think that's one of the biggest surprises when I start talking about apprenticeship, is that people find that there's a lot more opportunities in apprenticeship than there have been in the past. So in the last couple of years since Workforce Services, and Melissa, you've gotten involved in apprenticeship, there's been a growth. We've had more than 50 programs in the last couple of years. We've seen an increase in apprentices. This past year we had over 1,200 new apprentices. So currently we have more than 4,400 active apprentices, and at the completion of their apprenticeship program, on average, they're earning $60,000 a year. So I think it's important to keep in mind all the growth in apprenticeship has been happening during a pandemic. So you can only imagine where we're going to go from here. Lisa, what are your big plans?
Oh, Lexi, where to begin? You know, I'm really excited about the growth that we have had, but I'm really excited about the network that we have here in Utah. We have a number of businesses, education providers, community partners as part of the new Apprenticeship Utah network. And they're really helping us to expand, because really this takes a village. It takes a true partnership. No one person can grow the way we want to grow alone. So I really appreciate the network support and what they've done for us and with us. We have developed the state's first comprehensive apprenticeship website. There we have lots of tools and resources for individuals, for employers, for educators, and really to connect people to these open opportunities. We even developed a series of day in the life videos, because we want people to see what these jobs are and visualize themselves there. They will be able to see that there is an opportunity for them that just they fit right into. And so we're really excited about that. We're even working with some national partners to grow apprenticeships here locally in healthcare, IT, advanced manufacturing, but even for some really specific populations. We have a brand new partnership with individuals who are formerly incarcerated, and then even a program that they might be able to start while they're in prison that will lead to that program once they get out. So again, there's just lots of opportunities for different occupations and different ways to get into apprenticeships. You can get into an entry-level job. You can be working on a job and use it as a career step ladder to move up within an organization. It's a workforce development tool. It's a recruitment tool. It's just an amazing opportunity for anyone that wants to be involved. But this is where you come into play. We need more partners. We want more employers. We want more people to be able to benefit from apprenticeship programs. So we want to continue to develop opportunities. And Pat, we truly appreciate your partnership, being here locally, having a federal partner here in our state. We're able to tap into each other's resources, and I just think we're just going to be able to go further faster as a true partnership. Congratulations to everyone that's been involved in having activities this week, and we welcome those that want to participate in any activities moving forward.
Melissa, you're muted.
Thank you. I did that in my presentation earlier today too. I was worried about trying to get this other one stopped. Hold on just a second. There we go. And didn't pay attention to the screen I should have been paying attention to. So my apologies for that. But as you can see, I'm pretty excited. I'm excited about the support that we have from the governor, the support that we have from our industry partners, the support that we have from our education partners, both on a secondary and post-secondary level. And so I think just speaks to the movement that we have in the state currently and where we expect it to go. So I've got a few slides here that I can share with you that shows some key facts about apprenticeships. And let me find that one. Hold on. While I'm looking for this, I guess we'll just say, apprenticeships are something that have been around for a very long time. It's not anything new. They are a time-tested model, something that's been around for over 100 years. And it's just something that we can learn from that has been working very successfully in the construction industry that we can move into other industries as well. And I'm not finding my slideshow, but that's okay, because I have my notes. They're not really that critical, but I need to show them to you specifically. Really what I want to talk about is apprenticeships in general and what they are. It's been a buzzword for several years now, both here locally and nationally. And so really we need to define what it is. Apprenticeships, they combine paid on-the-job learning with formal classroom instruction to prepare workers for highly skilled careers. So rather than the notion of I need to get an education and then get a job, this combines the two. This affords someone the opportunity to be working and receiving their technical skills training at the same time instead of having to do one and then the other. We mentioned in the video that there are apprenticeable occupations in every industry. They can range from 1 to 5 years in length. It really just depends on the type of position that it is and the skill level that's required. They can be time-based, they can be competency-based, or they can be a hybrid model of the two. This is something that's different. If you knew about apprenticeships years ago, all you knew is that they were all 4 years long and they were all time-based. Most of them were part of unions. But it's just not that way anymore. They've changed quite a bit, and really to meet the demand of industry and the demand of people, right? If people need to work nowadays, not all of us have the ability to afford to spend years getting an education without being employed. And this just gives them the opportunity to do them both combined. Having an apprenticeship registered with the Department of Labor signals that it has quality standards that have been met. It allows individuals to receive a national certification that is not only recognized here in the United States, but often internationally because we have reciprocal agreements with other countries for our apprenticeship programs. It also benefits the individual because they're receiving that skill level. They receive a national credential. Oftentimes they can receive credit towards a degree, or it can result in a degree. And that's really exciting to hear because this isn't just something that is often touted with apprenticeship programs. I think that some felt in the beginning when I got this position that there was a little bit of concern that we might go too far the other way and say, nobody needs a degree. We don't need post-secondary education. But that's really not what my message is. My message is that apprenticeships are post-secondary education. They're just another way to get that education. And there are many paths to success. You can go to a tech school, you can go to a community college, you can enroll in the university, or you can get some education as in an apprenticeship program while you're working at the same time. Apprenticeships can be for both youth and adults. The average age of an apprentice in Utah right now is between 25 and 34. But we're working to bring that down a little bit by using some pre-apprenticeships and youth apprenticeships with our high schools, doing some concurrent enrollment so that they can result in getting credit towards their degree, but also may result in an associate's degree. There's just a lot of different models out there. The one thing that I can say is in Utah right now, we have more individuals with degrees than we have jobs that require degrees. Again, that's not to say that we don't need degrees, because there are many jobs that you will always need a degree in order to get into that job. But what are the stepping stones to get there? Are there other positions that you can do that may not require a degree that you can jump into, get some experience, and then move in that direction? we have heard mentioned that nearly a third, or actually between a third and half of students in their programs here locally are usually working by their second year of their post-secondary education or being enrolled in a university. So if they're going to be working anyway, why not have them why not have them have the opportunity to participate in an apprenticeship program so that they can at least be working in their field of study? And then that kind of helps us with the chicken and the egg situation, right? We see that there are positions that an employer says, hey, if you want to apply for this job, you have to have a degree. Well, then someone gets a degree and they apply for the job and the employer says, sorry, you don't have any experience. Or vice versa, you have the experience, but you don't have the degree. And this, again, gives you the ability to be able to do both. Nationally, it's been said that 27% of those who graduate with a degree never work in their field of study. That seems quite concerning because you put a lot of time and effort and money into receiving this post-secondary education. So, simply put, apprenticeships allow someone to be employed while they're also participating in their post-secondary education. And it's required that they are working in their field of study because the technical skills training, whether it be in the classroom or on the job, is directly related to that job that they're doing. So in essence, when possible, we should try to connect students to apprenticeship programs, especially if they're going to be working anyway, and give them that experience that they need. Is apprenticeship going to be a great fit for everyone, every program, every job? No, it's not, but it can be for many. So it's something that we just want to at least be thinking differently about and seeing how we can create opportunities for those that it does work for. We have some great models here in Utah where apprenticeships have been embedded in degree programs, some that will result all the way into a master's degree. We have some that are on the non-credit side that they're receiving certificates, but they can be stackable or even as micro-credentials that will lead them into their degree programs later. In Utah, we have seen a growth of apprenticeship programs in the last 2 years, just since I started helping with this, by 18%. That means that we've developed 50 new registered apprenticeship program sponsors here in the state. So that puts us over 260 what we call registered apprenticeship sponsors. But many of them have multiple programs. You might have one sponsor that hires apprentices in 3 or 4 different occupations. Or you may have a sponsor that acts as what we call an intermediary. This would be similar to Apprenti or the Associated General Contractors, where they have 3 or 4 or 5 different programs, but at any given time, they have anywhere from 10 to 40 employers that are using those programs. So when you start to add all of those up, even though we show that we have 260 programs, we actually have over 500 open apprenticeship opportunities right now in registered apprenticeship programs, and they just continue to grow and grow. So we're really excited about that. The number of apprentices that have been enrolled has increased by 11%. We currently have over 4,400 active apprentices in the state of Utah. So again, that speaks to the growth even during the pandemic. So I'm really excited to see where it can go now that we are not only back to pre-pandemic levels, but we've surpassed that in our growth and in our unemployment rate. We have with us today our panelists at Weber State University, who has IT and IT-related apprenticeships as part of a degree program, but are also having a pre-apprenticeship that will lead into that. They work with Apprenti that acts as the intermediary. We have Southern Utah University, who has a Department of Labor grant to put cybersecurity apprenticeships specific to clean energy and advanced manufacturing. This is a multi-state partnership and effort. We have Utah State University, who is working with the Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration. I always just call it the HRSA grant. So it's a mouthful. But the reason I bring these up is because there are a lot of groups nationally, all of our federal partners, that are starting to align their funding and their efforts and streamlining apprenticeship programs where they can. Another beneficiary of that same grant is the University of Utah. So both of these 2 grants are in behavioral health. University of Utah is part of their substance Use Disorder Treatment Training Certificate, their SUDC program. And Utah State has peer support specialists and family support specialists of individuals, again, that have had some sort of connection to substance use or abuse in their own life, and now they can act as facilitators and support to others who have that. So I'm going to let them talk more about their programs on the panel in a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to bring those up so that you can see the wide variety that we're seeing in apprenticeships now and the funding that's available out there, both at a federal level and at a state level. At a state level, we have custom fit that can be used as part of an apprenticeship program. We've got the Talent Ready Connections grant that is used for work-based learning and apprenticeships, especially at a high school level, but also in a post-secondary setting. We've previously had other funding as a state through the Utah Cluster Acceleration Partnership grants, Talent Ready Utah grants, SWI grants. So we know that we have support here locally in helping to develop these opportunities for all Utahns. And so really an apprenticeship is intended to be a learning by doing equivalent to college, and therefore it should be designed as a quality higher education experience. The type of program that an employer would want to hire or recruit a mid-level professional from. So who better to design that type of program than you as our higher education partners? So Trish, I think I should turn the time back over to you so that we can hear from our panelists.
Thank you. We had one question in the chat, Melissa, that I'd like to throw at you before we move on. Do educational providers need to register their specific programs to be part of the program?
Yes and no. It all depends. This is where we have the flexibility that has come in. So an employer who sets up a program, if they register their program, they identify who their related training provider is. When they do that, it's in essence approved by the Department of Labor to be used. Now we have others, such as the University of Utah, that has selected to become an intermediary sponsor. So when they're working with employers, they will do the reporting to the Department of Labor, but they have registered their program with the Department of Labor. So it can work in several different ways, but Alexia Murphy, who's our state program specialist for apprenticeships here, she's a great liaison between you and the Department of Labor when you're looking to set up a program, and we can help figure out what those nuances are going to be for your specific program.
Any other questions for Commissioner Stark?
Hi, this is Tim Miller from the UB Tech Institution. I have a question, if it's all right.
Please.
There's a lot of definitions floating around out there that I think are confusing. They have been for me. I was recently in a meeting with Workforce Services where we were talking about this, but then the subject kind of changed from the traditional apprenticeship definition to what an internship, what is externship, what is a mentorship, and where is the crossover, and what does that mean? And I heard Melissa say, well, they're employed, and I guess that term right there could have different definitions, but I'm wondering, what's the definition of an apprenticeship? What's the difference between it and these other things that we talk about?
That's a great question, Tim, and they do often get confused or used interchangeably. So an internship is can take on a different connotation whether you're in high school or post-secondary education. In a high school setting, it's more exploratory in nature. You're trying to figure out what you might like, you're learning about different industries, and you're not really committing to something, but you have a work-based learning experience in that field to see if it's something that you want to commit to later on. We know on a post-secondary level, oftentimes they are required as part of your degree program. But what we have found is they aren't often all of equal value, where you might be connected to a particular employer and they may have you as an intern and you may check the box of, I am going to complete my internship in a certain number of hours. It may or may not be paid, and it may or may not be directly related to my field. I might just get put at the front desk to answer phones. Or I might be doing something else, again, to check off the box, but it's maybe not going to be as valuable. We have seen a shift in that, where we do see more and more often, especially with the co-ops and the externships, that they are directly related to that degree program and they're building those skills, but we would like to see more of those. An internship, sometimes they're paid, sometimes they're not paid, sometimes they're considered an employee, sometimes they're not. A full benefited employee receives everything that the employer offers. That when you are an apprentice, you're hired by that employee or that employer, and you're treated like any other employee, and you have all the same benefits. That doesn't always happen with an internship or an externship. When my position was created, we did put in statute the formal definition of an apprenticeship, and we adopted the definition that is used by the Department of Labor. Last year, it was also updated to include pre-apprenticeship and youth apprenticeship. And the reason that we did that is so that we would all be speaking the same language and we would be all sharing the same message and working towards a common goal. And so I can find those references and put them in the chat while the next panel is taking place, or we can talk more offline about that as well. Simply put, I often say that an internship is a try before you buy model, and an apprenticeship is a train to retain. You're training them with the hope and the plan for them to stay within your company. And apprentices have a 92% retention rate. Those that complete their apprenticeship program remain with their employers.
Thank you. Right. Thank you, Melissa, for the wonderful presentation. And it's really good high-level information to have to set the context for these presenters that will share their actual work with us in the coming minutes. So thank you. We are going to now hear from our panelists. First of all, I'd like to do quick introductions so that you know who they are, and then they will go in the order that I read their names. We've given them 5 to 10 minutes each, so we'll hear from them each in turn, and then once they are done, we can take questions. All right, so first up we have Brian Raig, who's the Associate Dean in the College of Engineering, Applied Science and Technology from Weber State University. And then we have Jason Castillo from the University of Utah. He's an associate professor and director of the Substance Use Disorder Treatment Training Certificate Program. We will then have Dave James, who is an associate dean in apprenticeships and construction-related technologies at Salt Lake Community College. Jason McCoy, who is the CTE director from Southern Utah University. And then lastly, we will hear from Maren Voss, who is the Professional Practice Extension Assistant Professor of Health and Wellness, Health Extension, Advocacy, Research, and Teaching Initiative at Utah State University. So again, thank you to all of our panelists. Imagine on your heads that we're applauding you. And I will turn the time over to Brian to start us off. Thank you.
Thanks, Trish. I'm Brian Raig. I'm, as Trish said, the Associate Dean of the College of Engineering, Applied Science and Technology, Weber State. It was 2.5 years ago, we were awarded a grant from the Department of Labor it's called a Scaling Apprenticeship Grant. And when I say we were awarded, Weber State is the point of operations, but I always describe our grant as statewide. That's our charge, is to work collaboratively with other educational institutions to provide some of the required technical instruction that's associated with our grant. Our grant is focused on information technology apprenticeships. And you'll have to trust me when I say that is a steep climb, because when you talk to IT folks in the fields of computer science, any technological field, when you start bringing up apprenticeships, their mind immediately goes to kind of the traditional apprenticeship that Melissa was talking about. But Commissioner Wolstenhume basically encapsulated the challenge that IT has within the state of Utah and across country. When I was chair of the School of Computing, I would get calls every day from our industry partners. Give me your students, give me your best students. Where are all your graduates? We need more folks. And it's that demand that kind of drew me towards this other possibility of filling those positions within the state of Utah, since there is this demand. And sometimes it's confusing when you're from a degree-seeking institution, you're associate dean of a college in a degree-seeking institution, you're saying, not everybody needs a degree. And so you get these puzzled looks. But ultimately, what apprenticeships provide is another avenue for a good subset of our population in Utah and across the country to get on board in a career path that they wouldn't normally think of pursuing, because 4 years to get a degree, that's a long slog for a lot of people. So we started our effort in this arena, working with the tech colleges and other educational institutions, like I said, Ogden Weber Tech College, Davis Tech College, and there's facets of apprenticeship where higher education can more than anything do their part to make this a success, because apprenticeships are really part of the solution for this particular demand in the IT field. So I was going to share just real quick a few slides that pretty much describe a little bit of what Melissa said, and then a little bit of what we do as an apprenticeship program. And our formal goals are shown here as the 5 hallmarks of high quality apprenticeships. And Melissa talked a little bit about this, but I'd like to draw your attention to the 3rd bullet point, which is educational and instructional component. That's where we as educational institutions can come in and really play a large role in training these apprentices to get prepared for mid to high level careers in information technology. And so at Weber State, we've created a model called CS Flex, Computer Science Flex, which allows individuals to come on before a semester boundary or even finish after a semester boundary, so that they can hit the ground running and get the training they need. Our team, which is the Utah Technology Apprenticeship Program, is composed of apprentice liaison, that's Jessica Upton-Rowley, and also a business development manager. So we've got a core team of about 3 people. And one of the things, again, that we're attempting to do with our approach is to recruit folks that are interested in apprenticeships into our screening process, our interview process, so that they know what they're getting into. And then our business development manager, Steve King, is out there working with Utah industry and coming up with unique and innovative ways to get industry on board to recognize apprenticeships as a viable entry point to fulfill their personnel demands. I'm skipping ahead quite a bit because I just wanted to get to essentially what our pathway involves. And as Melissa said, we work with an organization that's out of Washington State called Apprenti. They're very seasoned in the apprenticeship development and approach. And this pathway basically constitutes what we've been attempting to implement over the course of our grant. And again, like I mentioned, we're 2.5 years into a 4-year commitment with the Department of Labor. So we identify who would make a good apprentice, as you can see there. And then along the way, there are significant opportunities for training of these individuals. Now, as a higher education institution, this is my last key point. Bringing people on board, I mean, they're not just FTEs or SCHs, as we like to refer or use those acronyms in our discussions here within the college, but they are individuals that could potentially be degree-seeking students within your organization, within your institution. So the idea is once these individuals hop on board and they're connected with a company, an employer, so they're kind of locked in, and there's that commitment there, that two-way commitment, where the apprentice is saying, "I'll get the education and training if you can have the soft landing for me and provide a job that I can then enter and succeed in." As an educational institution, and I've experienced this firsthand, we bring in apprentices, we train them, and we provide them credentials, stackable credentials or micro credentials, as the commissioner talked about. And along the way, they start to build up confidence and assurances in their, not just in their career pathway, but in their educational pathway. And before you know it, they're going for an associate's degree, and certainly the industry partner is going to be supportive of that, because that was the collaborative part that Melissa talked about between industry and education that really promotes the success of these individuals, these apprentices, to not only achieve their career goals, but to achieve their academic goals. So that's Just wanted to give an overview of what I did. I know there's other speakers, so I'm going to stop there, Trish.
Thank you so much, Brian. That was perfect. All right. So Jason from the University of Utah, you are up next.
Thanks, Trish, and thanks for the invitation today. It's a pleasure to see everyone online, and Brian, thanks for the presentation and the slides. I went back and forth today. Should I have PowerPoint slides or not? And then I ultimately made the decision not to go with slides. As Trish mentioned, my name is Jason Castillo. I'm a faculty member in the College of Social Work at the University of Utah, and I'm the director of our Bachelor's of Social Work program and our Substance Use Disorder Treatment Training Certificate program. So that is quite the mouthful. So the SUDC program in short. As many of you are aware, when we look at the state of Utah, when we look at the opioid epidemic, when we look at expansion of Medicaid, when we look at insurance parity legislation, as well as changing perspectives in how we see substance use disorders as a health condition, we as a state have really made a concerted effort at how do we best work with individuals, families, or groups that are in need of substance use disorder treatment training services. One of the things that we've identified is that we're seeing an increasing rate of substance uses across the state of Utah and the United States. One of the other things that we've identified is that there is a shortage of substance use disorder counselors in the state of Utah. When we look between the year 2018 and 2028, the projected growth for substance use disorder counselors is something like 38%. So when we look at the baseline number of substance use disorder counselors across the state, we're looking at around 3,100 individuals. When we look at 2028, we're really looking at about 5,500 substance use disorder counselors that are needed. So along those lines, one with the epidemic, when we look around shortage of service providers is really, and shortage of substance use disorder counselors is how and what can institutions of higher education do to assist or to decrease this gap. So the SUDC program that I serve, it's been around since 1982. We've served thousands of undergraduate students, students that are working towards their associate's degree or their bachelor's degree as well. The SUDC program, as of 2011, the Utah State Legislature required students to be working towards their associates and their bachelor's degree or have one of those two degrees. On an annual basis, we accept around 25 to 35 students. When we look at the SUDC program, really what we've identified is, these are the knowledge and skill sets that students need to be able to do in entering the workforce. We've got individuals, nonprofit organizations, public agencies, private organizations that are saying, hey, Jason, look, these are the individuals that we need. So when we look at substance use disorder counselors in the state, really what we're looking for and really what we are training our students on is really, one, how do you engage with a diverse clientele? How do you conduct an assessment or complete an assessment? How do you engage in screening? When we talk around counseling, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's group counseling, working with families, how to conduct case management, how to write treatment plans, how to engage in collaborative opportunities, how to refer populations to other community-based services. So as Melissa was mentioning earlier, in 2020, we became a recipient of a HRSA, a Health Resources Services Administration grant. We are one of, I want to say, 20 grantees to be awarded with this grant. And as Melissa was talking about, apprenticeships relatively in the healthcare field, behavioral health field, are relatively new. When we look at the federal government and the investment that they're making around apprenticeships and higher education, this is one of those funding mechanisms that they've put in place. And so really one of the things that we've made available to students is the SUDC program, providing them with an opportunity to acquire this certificate, acquire the knowledge and skills where they can indeed enter into the workforce, where they can secure licensure as either a substance use disorder counselor or an advanced substance use disorder counselor. And it's not uncommon when we talk around pathways to education, that students may very well begin in the SUDC program, then transition to our bachelor's program, and later transition into our master's of social work program. So when we look at the SUDC program, it really is an opportunity for us, one, to build upon the gaps in the workforce, but also when we look as far as, other areas, whether it's corrections, whether it's housing, whether it's income maintenance, really the development of other health and human social service workers in the field. When we look at our program and when we look at the grant that we are awarded, it was very much intended to provide scholarship and stipend support to students. So the training that we talk around our program is really broken up into two different components. It's one, a level 1 trainee, and then also a level 2 trainee. So I'll give a little bit of information. Level 1 trainee is really individuals that complete anywhere from 13 to 19 credit hours of didactic instruction. Following the completion of their didactic instruction, and this is coursework around dynamics of addictions, how to counsel with individuals, families, groups, how to engage in advocacy, and then also when we talk around professional development. So what is the scope of practice of a SUDC or an ASUDC? Following the completion of coursework, students complete anywhere from 240, 450-hour field practicum placement, right? With a community-based agency that works with clients that are diagnosed with a substance use disorder. And so I know that Tim had asked the question earlier around what's the difference between an internship and an apprenticeship. And so really what's going on is students in our internship, they are covered under the University of Utah College of Social Work to acquire the knowledge and skills to work with this population, or the population that they're serving. The area that we're relatively brand new to is in the area of apprenticeships. And so following our internship model, we have about 150 field practicum placements. We are working with our community-based agencies to identify and secure who might be an agency that wants to serve as an apprenticeship site. And so following the completion of the didactic instruction, the field practicum placements, our apprentices will go into a 2,000-hour apprenticeship with a community-based agency. So it's not uncommon that following the completion of the level 1 training, students will say, Jason, I don't know if I'm ready to go out into the field, right? And then I've got executive directors and clinical directors that are saying, man, I wish I had more time with this student, right? And so when we look at this apprenticeship opportunity, it really is the opportunity where we're able to provide that student trainee with additional time to work with the clientele to continue acquiring the knowledge and skills that they need to work with in this healthcare field. In addition to that, it also provides executive directors and clinical directors with knowledgeable and skilled apprentices that they can feel confident in that 1, 3, 5 years down the road, that they are going to indeed meet that gap that we're expecting in the year 2028, and that they're also able to serve in a professional, ethical, and competent manner. So if you have any questions, I can certainly provide Trish my PowerPoint, and if you can share it too, you're more than welcome to share it with today's attendees.
Thank you, Jason. Such great information. I really appreciate the faculty that are joining us today and other administrative staff too, so thank you. All right. Again, put your questions in the chat if you have them, and we will get to them momentarily. Dave James, you are up next from Salt Lake Community College.
So, thank you, Trish. So Salt Lake Community College has a unique part to play in the apprenticeship program, because we articulate with all of the technical colleges and agree with them in many of the traditional construction-based apprenticeship programs, such as electrical, HVAC, plumbing. And with that, we articulate with them so that those students that, as Melissa talked about earlier, those students that go out and they don't necessarily need their degree, but later on decide that, hey, this is important, that in order to advance in the field or in a company, they need to have that degree. We have the capability to take those apprenticeship hours and the classes that they have taken in those apprenticeships and convert them to the credits needed to complete an associate's degree, along with the general ed courses. So recently, one of our big accomplishments is we've been working with some of our high school partners and secondary schools to develop the youth apprenticeship programs. And recently, we just had a cohort from the Granite Technical Institute come through, and as they went through their first basically half year of apprenticeships in the high school department, they were able to come in and do early registration and continue that first year through the summer. And so they are now into their technically first year of college, that they are now a second year apprentice because of the work that they did in high school. We are also working with industry partners to create those in HVAC and in plumbing. And today we just signed the instructor for a high school plumbing, so they can also do the same thing and actually come in already knowing what they want to do for their careers and knowing where they're going to go so that they can continue and get that a lot sooner. And so imagine, being in high school and already having a pay increase of probably at least $1 an hour before you even graduate from high school. And then, having only 2 to 3 years to finish it up. We've also been working with other industry partners and creating other specific needs for apprenticeship programs. And this week, we just started our 3rd year apprenticeship program for the Utah Masonry Council. And so we started that 2 years ago. And each year it's grown. So we are looking forward to, continuing that for a long period of time. The great thing about Salt Lake Community College also is we do work with our workforce training department to create other specific industry needed apprenticeship programs. And I'm glad to see Peter Reed on the conference call, because he spent, I would say, countless hours working with industry to make sure that these apprenticeship programs were in place and functioning the way that they were supposed to. So we have a lot of new things that are in the pipeline. We've been working with industry throughout the pandemic to expand our apprenticeship programs. We're currently remodeling to start a new apprenticeship program for low voltage electricity. So all of the telecommunications, your security systems, entertainment centers, even your building automation systems, that is more and more prevalent today and continuing to grow, will continue to be able to function and have a way that they can come in and do their education while they are working in that field. Most of our classes are taught at night because, when people are working in the field, they use the daytime hours to do that, and then come at night, usually twice a week, to complete that. We encourage all of our apprentices also, as they go through their trade-specific training, to get those hours, to get those classes that are needed in order to graduate with an associate's degree too. In a lot of the apprenticeship programs, or a lot of the licensure, that degree cuts the time that they have to spend between a journeyman and a master's license in half. And so the benefit of education is so important. And we just had a person that earned his associate's degree, or excuse me, his apprenticeship. He completed it back in 1986. Just came back and is finishing up his degree just because he needs it to advance in his job. So, we continue to work with industry. We are open. We really do want to be the community college of Salt Lake City. And so we're open and willing to work with anybody that is interested, and to either create or to mold what we do have in order to work for them. So thank you so much for having me, Trish.
Thank you. That was great. All right. Jason McCoy.
All right, Trish, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm going to buck the trend today. I do have some slides I'd like to share with you guys, just so keeps me on track and gives you guys something to look at besides my face for 10 minutes. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, and you should all be able to see my slide presentation, right?
We cannot see it yet. There we go. It's coming up right now.
Okay.
Yep, we see it now.
Excellent. So the name of our project is Building Apprenticeship Systems in Cybersecurity, or BASIC is our acronym. It is an H-1B Closing the Skills Gap grant funded project. And our grant project intent is to address acute shortages of cybersecurity technicians, analysts, engineers, et cetera. As you guys all know, this is very topical right now. We've had recent cyber attacks on pipelines and other infrastructure, a lot of ransomware attacks on businesses and things of that nature. So it's topical, there's a need, and we're addressing that need by enhancing current apprenticeships by adding critical cybersecurity competencies to those existing programs. So our two areas of particular interest are clean energy and manufacturing. And a lot of times those industries don't necessarily have a cybersecurity capability that's already pre-existing. So what we're trying to do in some cases is just bolt on cybersecurity competencies into pre-existing functions for incumbent workers. We're also developing state and federally registered cybersecurity apprenticeship programs that are focused on upskilling workers. Again, that comes back to targeting that incumbent worker potentially and bringing them up from, say, a tangential field like call center or IT, giving them some cybersecurity capabilities so they can fulfill that role where it might not otherwise be filled. And then building articulated career pathways from pre-apprenticeship to cybersecurity master's degrees. So again, like some of my predecessors, Brian and a few others mentioned, what we really want to do is give people on-ramps and off-ramps to education. So we want to get those micro-credentials, those stackable credits in there so they can go out into the workforce, get those jobs, start providing that cybersecurity capacity to help secure our infrastructure. But at the same time, we want to give them a clearly defined path to come back into higher ed if that's their desire, or if it helps them advance in their career path and get that associate's degree or the bachelor's degree or even a master's. And we want that pipeline to be robust and repeatable for each apprentice that comes through. So some of the grant project populations that we want to serve are unemployed workers, underemployed workers, underrepresented populations, incumbent workers, veterans, individuals not traditionally represented in apprenticeship programs. So, you know, again, when we think about apprenticeships, a lot of times we think about skilled trades. Traditionally, there's not been a lot of females participating in those programs. We want to kind of break that trend with our program, bring all those populations in and have them included in what we're doing. Lower skilled and disadvantaged workers, and then currently employed folks that are seeking an apprenticeship. And again, it comes back to having some options for those that are coming right into the job market from high school or another job, maybe somebody who's in the latter end of their career and they want to pivot into something else, but then also targeting that incumbent worker population. So as part of our project, we're actually a consortium of which SUU is the lead, and the fiscal agent. We also have partners that are located in Washington, Michigan, and Oregon as well. I'll spare you reading all the partners and exactly what their functions are, but essentially the way this thing's organized is the H-1B dollars have helped us provide a launch platform where these various partners could come in with their different skill sets and different areas of expertise and build different parts of the project. And then we would collectively stand up registered apprenticeships in these various states to start educating and training these cybersecurity professionals. Okay. So again, this just tells you a little bit about our pipeline. We start at the apprenticeship level, bring those folks into credentialed training, and then we also are able to attach them into associate's degree programs and right on through to our master's programs. So again, on-ramps and off-ramps. One of the things that we like to do with this program, particularly when we're reaching out to both our employers and our participants, is put the value proposition up front, particularly since cybersecurity is one of those fields where it's not that traditional skilled trade that you associate with apprenticeship, like a lineman or a welder or something like that. We really need to advertise to the employer exactly what is the benefit for me to plug into this apprenticeship. And part of the value for the employers is that we connect them with a robust pool of potential employees. So we're doing some of that legwork for them in recruiting that pool of talent. And then we're providing the technical instruction to teach those basic cyber skills to the new employees or upskill their incumbent workers. This reduces the cost for the employer because these are all programs that they don't have to fund themselves. They don't have to connect to or outsource to another company. They can do it in-house, but they don't have to do the heavy lift of developing the programs themselves because we've already done it for them. We're also providing them access to a network of qualified mentors that may not be available in their own organizations. When I talked about small manufacturing earlier, one of the things that we've noted through our industry outreach and our advisory boards is that many of those small manufacturers, they don't already have in-house capabilities. If they're a mom and pop sort of operation, it would cost them a lot of money to go out, hire a cybersecurity professional that might already have a master's degree. Whereas this way, if they already have somebody that's, say, handling their IT capability, a family member or something like that, it can plug into an apprenticeship program and get somebody qualified for less money and then hopefully retain them as well. I love the phrase that Melissa used earlier, that the apprenticeship is training to retain. I think that's absolutely true. We utilize competency-based assessments to ensure industry-vetted pathways to success for apprentices. And again, that helps alleviate the burden of program development on the employer. And again, the industry vetted is the key term here. Everything that we have done with this program, we have tried to get vetted by industry ahead of time to make sure that it really is intentional and it's meeting the needs of the workforce. And then finally, we've got potential tax credits that those employers could take advantage of by hiring specific targeted worker populations, such as the unemployed or veterans that are just leaving the service. So the next population that we really want to bring that value proposition home for is the apprentices themselves. So for them, it's kind of a no-brainer because we're connecting them to a potential apprenticeship and employment with an industry vetted training component. So that provides them with employment and a competitive wage. So even as they're going through the apprenticeship program, they're earning at least a livable wage. It also has low cost with potential financial aid opportunities that we help them identify via our project navigators. And then they get that on-the-job training paired with flexible online learning. In our case, our program is exclusively online. So they can go to work during the day, work through the program with their mentor, and then come home at night and work their way through the program at their own pace within reason. Okay. So the offerings that we currently have, we have two federally registered apprenticeships. One is through one of our consortium partners, WestCamp. That's an industry association. That's a one-year apprenticeship leading to a CompTIA A+ certification. And then we have our Southern Utah University registered apprenticeship, which is connected to our cybersecurity fundamentals certificate. That certificate's comprised of 5 courses. So we have fundamentals of cybersecurity and network and cloud security. Everybody does those. And then we give the apprentice the opportunity to choose from one of 3 elective credits that specialize either in defensive security, offensive security, or digital forensics. Okay. And again, that's based on their perception of what they need with the company that they're going into. All right. So finally, I just want to talk about a couple of challenges and lessons learned. The big one for us has been unforeseen events. We were awarded our grant in February of 2020, so right before COVID really became a big thing. This kind of taught us that there's really a need with this type of project to be flexible. Something else you might want to consider is to build in some buffers, both in terms of finances and timeline. So if you suffer a setback, as we did, you have some time and some extra money to sort of recover from that and pivot in some different directions that you might not have anticipated. The other challenge from a higher ed perspective has really been putting those pieces together. So an apprenticeship requires mentors, employers, and participants. We're really good at bringing in students. We're really good at outreach in some cases, but bringing all that together into one collective effort has really required some innovative partnerships on our part that in some cases we didn't identify. The other thing I would encourage folks to do if they're interested in getting an apprenticeship started and they're looking for grant funding is identify ends that fit your means. So the best way that I can put that is take a really hard objective look at what you're capable of and what your partners and potential partners are capable of, and select a grant, and more importantly, maybe a grant amount that you're able to pretty easily meet the performance metrics on. It's okay to stretch a little bit, but if you overstretch too much, you might find yourself in a position where you're struggling to meet those grant objectives. We've seen that a little bit ourselves, and we've seen it in other CSG grants, particularly post-COVID. So those are my main takeaways, and that's it for my presentation. And I believe I've hit my time limit, so I will pass it on to the next person. And if you guys have any questions, I will hang around at the end. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. We have a request to share slides, so I can talk to the panelists later, but if you have slides and you would be willing to share them, then we can send them out to the registered attendees later.
I can absolutely do that. Let me stop sharing my screen here.
All right. So Marin from Utah State, you are up next, and then we will open up for questions. I have a few questions in the chat that we can address when Marin is done.
Great. Are you able to see the main screen? Or are you seeing more the presenter mode?
We see a presentation only.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Make sure we're there. Okay. All right. So I came to the apprenticeship approach in a really haphazard, unintentional way. And so there's some unique things that, you might learn from my experience, and there might be others who want to embrace apprenticeships similarly. So I got hired by Utah State University to help address the opioid crisis that was happening in Utah. And I was part of this 5-member HEART team. Extension, if you're not familiar with this system, it's part of the land-grant university mission to bring higher education insights out into the communities. And so Extension has offices out in every county, and we're focused on community-based education. And with this opioid epidemic impacting so many communities, USU felt that there was a need to have more health-focused faculty out in Extension. And so I was one of the faculty that got hired for that. And so that long title stands for Health Extension Advocacy, Research, and Teaching. And so we serve these 9 counties. And so Tooele County is one of the counties I serve, and it's considered rural by HRSA. And when we did sort of an initial assessment of what's going on and contributing to this opioid epidemic, we heard people talking about not enough pain management resources. But this other idea came up called peer support specialists, which is what I'm going to focus on today. So if you're familiar with USARA, it is the Utah Support Advocacy Recovery Awareness Group. And they have peer support specialists who are people who have lived experience with substance misuse themselves, but you can be a peer support specialist with a mental health background as well. And one of the things you find is that these people are really relatable when they're on treatment teams, and they seem to move the ball forward in treatment in a way that sometimes our other licensed professionals aren't always able to do. I love Mercedes' quote as a peer support specialist. She said, "My mess is now my message." And so they're just really relatable to people. And when you have peers on treatment teams, people stay in treatment longer. They feel more hope and empowerment because they've seen somebody else who's made it through. They report that they have better quality of life. We see lower hospitalization rates, lower future arrest rates. So there's just all of these great benefits to having peers on the treatment team. But as I was in my Tooele community and interacting with people who had experienced the opioid epidemic, I had heard that because these are people who have complicated histories, it wasn't always easy to just drop everything, go to take a 40-hour training in order to get the certification. And so trying to make that training more accessible was part of what started off as my goal that took me onto this apprenticeship path. So, you know, if you, wherever you live in Utah, trying to get to that place to do that training, paying for travel costs just wasn't an option. So the first thing I did was sort of create a hybrid training model where people could do some of that education online and some of it they are doing 2 days in person so that they can learn those support and interviewing and assessment skills. So we created this sort of novel model to help. I'm missing a slide that I really wanted to show you. I'm not sure why it's not showing up. Okay. Oh, well, it won't matter. So we created this novel model to help people out. And one of the reasons why it was so important is because we have a behavioral health workforce shortage, a little bit like Jason told us about. And in particular, in rural areas, it can be really hard to retain licensed medical professionals. And so peer support specialists are people who can support that treatment team and can build out that workforce. So our blueprint for developing accessible training and to expand the workforce was to use this apprenticeship model as a career development pathway. So there's the 40-hour certification program that is the state has endorsed to be credentialed as a certified peer support specialist. And then we added to that the fieldwork piece where they get some supervision and mentorship with a 6-month stipend. There's a college readiness piece. So most of our people are non-traditional students from their complicated histories. And so many have not taken any college classes, weren't really planning for that. And so we give them some mentored support in those college courses. And the classes we have them take are the ones that build toward the SUDC counselor program that Jason had talked about supporting in Utah. And so these individuals then, if they complete this training, are then prepared to take that next step in their career toward a higher level degree and certification and credential. So we build in that college readiness with 12 credits of college classes that are going to support them in the prerequisites. And then they also can continue to work in the field with this structured apprenticeship and that support. And we're working with the state to create an advanced certification status like SUDCs have, where once they've completed all of these components, they have not just the CPSS credential, but they have that in advanced standing. One of the reasons why that's important is because these individuals come from complicated histories. Not all of them are quite as ready for the workforce. And so we've had a little bit of trouble with getting major uptake of CPSS workforce into higher tier settings like hospital treatment settings. And so having people who have that advanced certification is a way to give them just a little bit more comfort that there's a level of professionalism there in these paraprofessionals that will allow them to work in those settings with perhaps more complicated requirements and you know, rules and whatnot. So that's what we've been doing. So because we were already out in all the communities, we have really good relationships with a lot of clinics and treatment settings. And so it has not been hard for us to establish relationships and places for our trainees to go and work and get their experience. But we're at the very beginning side of this. And so we don't have a lot of lessons to learn on and obstacles that we can talk about so far in the process of building the apprenticeship model. We are serving as sort of the proxy or intermediary site. And so USU Extension is the one that's overseeing and reporting on the apprenticeships. And then we sign up different agencies so that they don't have to go through that paperwork side of the process, but they can be the on-site people providing the mentorship and the career experience for our paraprofessional peers. So with that, I will turn it back over to Tricia.
Thank you, Maren. So I love the variety and the innovation and how everybody's adjusting their own models to fit what's needed at the time. So it's really good, I think, for all of us to hear and learn from each other and maybe get some ideas of how we could implement something similar. Or different, but using that as a basis. So I wanted to just address some of the questions here in the chat. We had one earlier from Saya Mali. I'm not sure if that's how I pronounced your name. Sorry if I butchered it. But she says, love this. High schoolers getting paid to learn, both in dollars, but also in credit hours saved. Is this throughout SLIC only or in construction related tech? What other schools present have similar setups? Dave, that was a question for you specifically, but anyone is willing to answer.
So the way that the legislation was set up, it is for any industry that has apprenticeship programs are able to do youth apprenticeship programs. The only ones that I know of that have been activated so far, and maybe Melissa could answer this, but are in the traditional, so the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC programs. Those are the only ones that I know about. But I do know that that they've been working hard on the cybersecurity one also.
I would agree with you, Dave, but I think that speaks to the experience. And, you know, they've been around in a long time in the traditional trades, and so they are moving more into some of the youth apprenticeships, but they are definitely expanding. I know Peter Reed has a major effort in that arena. I know I've had conversations in the healthcare, in financial services, in banking, in IT. So I think we're going to see it start to expand a little bit more, but it kind of just takes one at a time. And I think they've seen some success. And I put in the chat the youth apprenticeship webinar that's going to happen on Thursday. We will have Stadler Rail there talking about their experience and why and how. And then we'll also have Hunt Electric. They are a non-union program, but are registered. They work with Granite School District, and they show how they use internships and project-based learning leading up to that, and then how it can lead into their full apprenticeship program. And the same thing, Dave, where you talked about that they are able to receive credit, if you will, for the hours completed, whether they be work hours or classroom hours. Those go towards their full program. And so they can actually finish a little faster than some of those that finish after they graduate high school. So we are starting to see a little bit more of that. And I think we'll continue to see that growth just in a slow but forward movement.
Thank you. I think the other questions were addressed in the chat. We have a few more minutes, so if there's anything else, please pop it in there or just unmute and ask.
So Trish, there was one part, I believe, that I also saw from.
Did I miss it?
From Tim Miller. I know that part of it was addressed that a youth apprenticeship can start at 16 years old. And because it is, you know, a national movement, that it allows the workman's comp of that company to cover it. And I believe it was Melissa said that, you know, as long as they're not working around hazardous materials. So for example, a youth apprenticeship electrician can do everything that any other apprentice can do. However, they cannot work on live panels. So they can't have live electricity going through there, but they can run the wire, they can, you know, do circuits, motor controls, everything else, as long as they're not energized.
And I would probably just add to that there are 5 or 6 of the 11 hazardous occupations that they can do if it is part of a registered program. If it's not a registered program, they cannot. But that is because they have a mentor with them and they're being watched closely and they have one-on-one mentorship is the reason they do that. I do also know that liability can be covered through the school district when they are high school students. And they have even been working to at least cover that through their senior year. So somebody started a program as a senior, and they graduated in May, but their program is going to finish in August. They've gotten agreement from the state to continue that liability through that time period.
Thank you. Any other questions? One thing I wondered about while you're thinking about that is, what tips do you have for engaging faculty in participating in these apprenticeship programs? Some of you are faculty. How have you engaged other members of your team?
First, I'll take a stab at that one. I mean, one of the strategies that we've kind of taken with the department is that we've tried to really give them a sense of ownership over the program. So, like I alluded to in my PowerPoint, one of the things we're trying to establish is a robust pipeline from that apprenticeship into the majors, whether it be an associate's, a bachelor's, or at the master's level. So we want to kind of advertise that value proposition to them as well up front, and then kind of give them some strategic long-term ownership of it. My office is really just kind of the launching pad with the grant funds to get the program started. And then once it's gone past the life of the grant, ideally, we'd like to be able to hand it off to them and have it flourish from there. So that's been our approach.
No, that's great. Empowerment is always a positive thing, right?
I agree.
Any other panelists want to comment on that?
I was just going to add to what Jason already said is, I mean, service is a large part of what faculty are expected to do. Apprenticeships represent a really good opportunity for community outreach, community support, working with other organizations that promote training and learning and these career pathways that are unique. So I've been inclined to frame things in that respect, especially at Weber State, reaching out into the Ogden city community and that sort of thing has brought faculty on board and actually energized them about the apprenticeship opportunity as a pathway for earning a credential or a degree.
Thank you.
And I'll throw in there, reach out to your extension colleagues because we're out in every county. So we're a really good resource for you connecting. But in my area, the peer network is vital. And so for us, we need to work with the other peers that are in the area, and they're the ones connecting people, connect us to agencies, recruiting people for our training because they're talking to each other. So connecting into the local network has been critical. And then among faculty, recruiting faculty, it's just been like, I just suggest jumping in because then you end up finding the other faculty that are working in your space. Like Jason Castillo and I are going to now meet now that we know that we're working in the same space. But I have people who work in the CTE side that have been working with community health workers, which is a very similar concept in terms of a paraprofessional that's in the workforce, in the healthcare workforce. And now they're finding that there's a lot of opportunities for us to work together. And so they've been reaching out to me and we've been able to build collaborations from there.
Awesome. Thank you. I have a question in the chat that says, how do you engage employers who seem to be old school and don't want to be bothered with the topic? They seem to have excuses. If they have been burned in the past somehow, I'm not sure how to change their mindset. Any tips on that with employers?
Trish, that's actually something I'd like to speak to. I've been spending a lot of time in that headspace lately, especially when you start talking about trying to engage those industries that haven't typically used apprenticeships in the past too. And usually one of the first things that grabs their attention is if you can show them financially how it benefits their company. Everybody likes knowing that it's going to be positive for their bottom line. And then to be able to really speak to the quality of individuals they're going to have after somebody gets through an apprenticeship, and the retention piece too, are some of the biggest pieces there. Everybody's having the same problem. Nobody can find the skilled workforce that they need because the pipeline is just dried up, even if it was there before. So being able to present that kind of a solution for that specific problem, also and add on to it that they can get a pretty decent ROI, makes them take notice and now they want to start to know more?
Great thoughts. Thank you.
I would probably add to that. Some of those that don't want to change their mind, sometimes they never will. And so we just move on. Sometimes they see their competitor benefiting from the program, and then they come back to us and say, okay, how can I do that now? And sometimes that's really what it takes. But I will say one of the advantages that we have in Utah now is that we have this Apprenticeship Utah network. The network consists of industry partners, higher ed, secondary, other government, and community partners. And this group or this body are willing to be mentors to other businesses. They know that they're competing for the same talent, but they also know that we're competing for the greater good and having a great economic situation here in Utah and competing globally. And so we've had sponsors from other industries totally willing to come out and talk to other industry sponsors to say, this is why we did it. This is how we did it. Here's some things to be aware of. This is what we wish we knew when we started ours. So be aware of that. We have quarterly business to business webinars now. We had planned on them being in-person networking events. And our first one was planned literally 1 month into COVID. And so we had to redirect, and they've been webinars ever since. But the advantage of having the webinars is we've been able to reach individuals statewide who wouldn't normally come into Salt Lake or Ogden or Layton or Provo, because most likely that's where we would be, right? That's where the bulk of our employer and our industry partners are. But we are trying to get further out into rural communities. But just know that there's a resource there. When we have the business to business panels, we usually have 2 to 3 employers from different industries, because we want people to see, oh, it's not just construction, it's not just this, or, oh, that only works for them in manufacturing. No, we have a variety on our panel so that they can see that it can be done in any industry. And I think it speaks to them, hearing from their peers. We're government workers, Peter and I, so we can go in and say anything we want, and it could be the greatest thing since sliced bread, but they're still going to take the word of their peer before a government worker. And so I think that speaks to faculty as well. For those of you that are looking at or wanting to know how do you engage other faculty, use your partners here that have some experience. Have them come and talk to your staff. Have them show what are some of the things that they did, or come up with ideas or things to work on together, and use them as your mentors.
And you know, Melissa, you raised an incredibly great point. Nobody's alone in this prospect. There is a ton of support, no matter what they need their apprenticeship to look like, no matter what industry, to help them get into apprenticeships. They don't have to create everything, you know, and start from scratch. There's already a lot there. So there's just a ton of support for them to get started. And you know, especially we find a lot of success too when we approach industries as a whole and not individual industry partners, because you know, it's a daunting task to even though you're told there's support, it feels like you're all on your own. But if you have a group of your peers with you, just like Elisa was saying, it's a lot easier. So being able to approach consortiums, to engage, you know, industry organizations that can bring in a lot more people all at the same time tends to be a lot more convincing.
Thank you. Well, we are up against time here, so I want to just bring this to a close and say thank you, a huge thank you to everyone who's presented today, Commissioner Wolstenhume, Commissioner Stark, and all of our panelists. We really appreciate your time and sharing your energy and your enthusiasm and skills with us and the knowledge that you've learned. So thank you for that. This video will, as you know, is being recorded. We will put it up on the USHE website in the coming days, and we will send you out an email to let you know that that's happened, along with the slides that have been requested. If there are any other questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we can grab those later. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.